Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alyssa, and on this channel, I share all about my blindness and living with chronic kidney disease, and also motherhood, lifestyle, other types of videos like that, devotionals. If you like this kind of content, would love for you to subscribe. If you're not new here, welcome back. Today, I'm going to share with you my kidney transplant story because a lot of you have been asking about that, and I let y'all know that I got a kidney transplant last year, but never shared with you this story because it is a fun one. Okay, maybe not fun. I'm being sarcastic. It's a long one, so I'm gonna make it as short as I can. Disclaimer, I'm sitting outside my backyard. My dogs are out here, so they might bark, and there's been airplanes flying overhead because I live near an airport. So if you hear that, I apologize. We're gonna work with it. All right, grab some coffee or something to sip on, and let's sit down and talk about my kidney transplant. So, just to kind of give you a little backstory, I was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney failure in October 2021. I started dialysis a few months later in 2022. And it was home dialysis, peritoneal. My husband gave me treatments every night while I slept, hooked me to a machine. So that was good that it was at home, but it was also really, really hard as well, getting dialysis every night. A few months after starting dialysis, very quickly after, actually, I got pregnant with my baby boy, Noah, who's almost 2.5 now. And that's a whole other story. If you guys are interested in my actual, I know I shared with you guys a little bit about, he was born early and he spent almost 4 months in the NICU because of me being sick. There comes the airplane. Sorry, guys. But if you want to hear more about his actual birth story, let me know, and I will do a video on that as well. But, so I had him, and he was in the hospital for a while, and I was, doing dialysis lots and lots, both when I was pregnant with him and after he was born. When I was pregnant with him, I was actually doing pretty well, considering, like, my blood work looked pretty stable. The pregnancy kind of made me almost just feel better in a sense, which can happen. But then once he was born, my health declined extremely. Like, my body took a huge turn for the worse, and I was more sick than I'd ever been in my life. I could barely walk without passing out. I was getting winded. There's just all these things happening. Anyways, so long story short, by December 2023, I was so sick that my husband reached out on Facebook and basically was begging for someone to test to be a kidney donor for me, because a live donor is a quicker process. The waiting list for a deceased donor is 5 to 7 years, and I was on the list already for a year. And my husband was just like, okay, my wife needs a transplant, because I was so sick, you guys. I could barely take care of my kids. The Lord was sustaining me, but it was really, really hard. So that's what happened. And then actually some really sweet people came forward. One person tested, found out they were a match for me. So I was actually supposed to have a transplant within the next few months. The person had to go through some medical stuff first, like, do some things to get approved. And so it was going to be a few months. But by January, we were like thinking a transplant would be maybe 4 to 6 months away. So I was kind of getting some hope. And then in February, I recorded an album, which I can share more about that with you guys another time. But I recorded my first ever worship album in California. I was very sick when I went. Like, I was in a wheelchair. My husband had to push me around the airport. And then when I was there, I couldn't even walk. So I barely was able to sing, but the Lord got me through it, and that was amazing. So I get home from California from doing that on the night of February 18th, about midnight, maybe 1 a.m. I go to sleep. And I always have my phone off at night, but my phone for some reason was on because the Lord loves me. And 6 hours later, around 7 a.m., I get a phone call from the transplant center. And I was like, that's weird, because I'm not having my transplant for like 6 more months. So I answer the phone, and they said, hey, Alyssa, we actually have a kidney for you. It's a deceased donor, a young person who died a cardiac death, which is totally terrible, by the way. I have struggled a lot with that. There's a lot of guilt and emotions surrounding getting a kidney from someone who's died, and I can go into more on that if you're interested in another video. But I, of course, was shocked because, again, the wait for a deceased donor is 5 to 7 years, and this was only been a year, and they said, we picked you for this kidney. We would like you to take it if you're interested. And of course I said yes. So the next morning, on February 20th, 2024, I had my kidney transplant. And at first we thought it was going well. I survived the surgery, which is huge because I was very sick. I was so sick that I didn't think they were going to transplant me, y'all. Like, they turn people away when they're as sick as I was. So, but they did it. And we thought it was going well for a while. I was actually released from the hospital after 3 days. But when I got home, I swelled up so bad that I ended up back in the ER 12 hours later from severe swelling and severe bleeding from my drainage, which, by the way, might be some TMI. So if you don't like talking about blood and body things, then click off right now. But So I go back to the ER after 12 hours of being home, and they basically said, oh my goodness, your levels are not well, your kidney's not really doing its job. So they kept me for a couple of days in the ICU, and actually in the surgery trauma center. And then they said, this was like an hour and a half away from my house. And they finally said, well, your levels are coming up a little bit, still doesn't look great, but we'll send you home. So I actually went and stayed in a hotel right by the hospital just in case for a night. And the next morning I met with the doctor again, and they put me on a diuretic because, you guys, I had gained 35 pounds of weight in like 3 days since my surgery. So crazy stuff. And found out it was water weight, but you guys, 35 pounds in 3 days is a lot. And I couldn't breathe. I could barely walk. It was horrible. I honestly regretted my transplant. I told my husband I was better on dialysis. Why did I do this? I actually, and this is like super vulnerable, but I actually at one point was so miserable that I told him, I just need to go. Like, let me go. Like, you got you got the kids. They're better off. Like, I'm good. I'm done, and he was like, excuse me, no, you're not in your right mind. And I wasn't, y'all. I was pretty medicated. But I couldn't walk. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I couldn't breathe. It was horrible. I was probably sicker. It was sicker than when I was on dialysis. So that happened. They actually ended up readmitting me a few days later after I had been home a few days, back to the same hospital where I had my surgery, back to the same transplant floor. I was there for a week. By this point, Richard, my husband, had to stay home with the kids, so I was alone. I didn't have any visitors or anything like that. My kids couldn't visit me because it's like an ICU sort of situation. But they did a biopsy on my new kidney to see what was going on. Everything looked fine. They couldn't tell anything, but they ended up, keeping me until they got clear results back. And while I was there, I had to have 3 dialysis treatments because, you guys, I had so much like swelling and water weight that they were like, okay, you're retaining fluid. Something's not working with your kidney. They didn't know why. So, hold on, my little dog's barking. Let me move her. Sorry if I'm moving around a little bit. I'm going to grab my little puppy. But they basically, I'm going to try to grab her. She won't let me. Okay, fine. So anyways, sorry about the camera view. But they basically had to do 3 dialysis treatments on me and make sure that I got the fluid out. Sorry guys, I'm trying to grab my puppy so that she doesn't bark anymore. She doesn't like being alone, but she won't let me grab her. I'm like, dude, if you're going to bark, at least let me grab you. Anyway, well, I'll just sit here next to her. But anyways, so yeah, they weren't sure why I was gaining so much weight and doing so horribly. So they gave me dialysis 3 times. And then they figured out very quickly that I had a blood disease. So my biopsy results finally came back after a week. They had to put a port in my neck. You guys, it was horrible. I'd never had one before. It's like a hospital temporary port so I could get dialysis. Then they found out I had this really rare blood disease, you guys, that I've apparently had before my transplant. Apparently, this is why my kidneys failed in the first place. And you guys, they didn't catch it before on my original biopsy before I started dialysis. So it's just crazy how things can be missed in the healthcare system. But anyway, I won't go there. That's a whole nother video. So they found out I have something called primary FSGS, which is basically, sorry, I keep getting up and down, guys. I'm trying to keep the dog quiet. But it's basically a disease where my body like attacks like something in my blood. The doctors don't know what it is, but something in my blood causes, basically my body to poke holes in my major organ, which is my kidney, and my old kidneys too. That's how they were all scarred and ruined. So it was my body was basically destroying this new kidney right away, even though it was a great kidney. So they started me immediately on intense treatments called plasmapheresis, which is very similar to chemotherapy. That's how intense it is. Like, I threw up the first time. They had to give me anti-nausea medicine every time. They finally sent me home from the hospital after a week, but I had to come back to the hospital every 2 days or so to get those treatments. And this went on for 2 to 3 months, you guys. I thought the kidney was failing. Everybody did. And they said, okay, we'll try these treatments, intense treatments. There's only a 50% chance that it will work. The other half, your kidney will fail and you'll go back on dialysis. So we didn't have our hopes too high, but we did these treatments for about 3 months. I had a port in my chest, like I had when I was on dialysis and pregnant. And I would go in 2 to 3 times a week to the hospital for these treatments. I would also have to get something called IVIG infusions because these treatments were killing all of my antibodies, good and bad, so I had no way of fighting off anything. I was also on immunosuppressants. Y'all, it's crazy. Transplant life is crazy, and I can go into more detail. But basically, yeah, I had primary FSGS. These treatments helped me to get rid of all the fluid. I ended up losing the 35 pounds and then some. I actually ended up extremely underweight. I got down to 100 pounds, which for me, I was like, I think I was like close to 125 when I had my transplant initially. So I was 100 pounds, which for me was extremely, extremely thin. So anyway, that was my issue for the first few months, but it ended up that my body responded to the treatments, you guys. And on May 1st, 2024, I got my port out. I stopped treatments. My kidney was 90% function, you guys. Totally unheard of for someone with the disease I have. Because unfortunately, there's no cure for primary FSGS, the blood disease I have. I believe it's autoimmune is what they would think. And there's no cure. So we just have to basically keep it in remission. And so they also they took me off these treatments, but they found another medication. It's an injection. My husband gives me a shot twice a week that has been helping to keep me in remission. So I don't have to have these treatments in the hospital anymore. So I'm on that now, and I have been since. So that is my transplant story in a nutshell. Basically, I had an amazing donor who I won't share about, but I finally have learned about my sweet donor who's in heaven now, and finally got to connect with their family a little bit. And I don't think I'm going to share much about that, but if you have any questions about donor families and all that, I can answer those. But long story short, you guys, I have an amazing kidney. It didn't work at first. It took a few months. Honestly thought I was not going to make it, but you guys, I'm here today to say my kidney is functioning. It is not 90% anymore, because what happens is little by little you lose kidney function with this disease. And so I don't suspect this kidney is going to last terribly long, but I'm just thankful for every day that I have it. And so it's about 60% function right now, I would say, maybe 70 on a good day. But hey, that is better than the 2% or 0% function I had on dialysis. So I am so thankful. Sorry I kind of got through this quickly and was moving around a lot. I hope the view was okay, but I hope that you enjoyed this kidney transplant story, that you learned something. Basically, what I want you guys to know, kind of the moral of the story, is that a kidney transplant is not a cure for kidney disease. It's just a treatment. It's temporary. It's a blessing, but it's temporary. And not every kidney transplant goes well. See, I was under the impression that every kidney transplant was amazing. Once you got a kidney, you're gonna, life is normal again, everything's better. And it doesn't always happen that way. Some of us have to fight for it. Some of us, the kidney doesn't take right away. Some of us, our bodies decide they don't want it, and they try to reject. It doesn't always work out. And so it doesn't always go well. And I didn't know that. I was very naive going into it, thinking, oh, I'm going to get a kidney transplant. Everything's going to be okay. Well, it is now, but it took a long time to get there. And I still struggle. I'm still fighting this disease that's not curable. I'm still, fighting health battles every day. They're minor compared to what they were, but they're still there. And so that's why I'm the blind kidney warrior, because I fight every day and I will not give up. And so I hope this encouraged you today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Be sure again to subscribe if you want to keep following my kidney warrior journey, my journey with kidney disease, primary FSGS, my transplant journey, all of the above. Would love to have you a part of the community. Thank you so much for watching, and I will plan to see you in the next video. Bye.